Today, as is tradition, we'll be making a tier list for the June Balance Council changes. We'll try and go through it pretty quickly, and this time we will make sure that everything is in order, and I'll be very clear on what the changes were to these cards, because I know I may have not done the best job of that last time. So, we have, as always, top tier. These are changes I think are fantastic, and these are primarily ones I think might make another deck viable that wasn't viable without these changes, or that fix the meta by doing something really good. But usually these are just like things that make new decks, in my opinion. Good changes are changes I think are good. Either they help decks that aren't very good, or they address cards in the meta that are problematic by nerfing them, stuff like that. It's like overall good changes for the game. Neutral changes, I don't really care one way or the other for. These are things that I think either don't really matter, or they don't make much of a difference, or sometimes for cards I just don't care about. Questionable changes are ones I am not sure are good or bad, but usually these lean towards I don't think it's a good idea, but it could be either. It's kind of like neutral in some ways, so these things I'm leaning on the not great side. We have bad changes, which I think are bad, and we have this tier down here called I hate this tier for everything that I hate because I've had to repeat it like 20 times, once for each Balance Council or for the changes that are really stupid. Now, let's get into the cards here. We will begin the video this time. We'll start with all of the, what are they called? The power decreases. So these cards all lost 1 power. Saskia Commander. Neutral at 5 with immunity. She's really hard to get rid of. But Harmony was not a good deck prior to last patch's buffs. And this was one I don't know. I could go either way on this one. I'm neutral. Well, it's probably better that got reverted, but I don't like it because it's a 1 patch revert. So, and I don't think we could tell how much of the impact this was because of certain other changes we'll get to. I can totally understand people thinking this is a good change, though. Svalblood, I'm kind of neutral on as well. I might be biased. Svalblood, Self-Wound's one of my favorite decks in the game. But I think this one makes sense if you want Svalblood to be less strong as an engine, because he kills himself faster and he gets into removal range faster. And he's less good as a Singer of his right target later in the game. So I can see this one. But I am not too strongly opinionated on it. Henry, I think, is a good change. Henry Shroop was a very strong Nilfgaard deck. And I voted for this one. I think we'll note the ones we vote for this time. I voted for this one because I thought that Henry played for too much tempo when his ability really gives you a lot of value over time, or value for making the new cards. So I thought that deck was strong. This is a good way to take away a power from it without really hurting it too much. And then we have Brewer's Ritual, and what I voted for. I think this is good. Brewer's Ritual just makes an impressive amount of round 1 tempo. It still makes an impressive amount of round 1 tempo, but it's 1 less point with the Death Wish decks. I know people don't like this one sometimes, but Death Wish got several buffs with things like Haunt, so I think this is probably fair to reduce that round 1 tempo. I'd rather see its power in other cards, but I think this is fine. Jan Calway, I don't know about this one. I don't really care one way or the other. It's a very, very good setup card. Jan is the best consistency card in the game, and making him play for 1 less power is kind of the same vein as Henry, but I didn't want to do too many Nilfgaard nerfs all at once, so I don't really care one way or the other on this one. Skjordal, I don't like this change. He lost his power. He gained a power last patch, and we reverted it, which I don't like. The question is, questionable or bad for me. I think that if he was too strong, he should have just gained a provision rather than take away the power, but I'm not going to go far as say this is bad. We'll go with questionable. I don't really like it, but I don't dislike it enough to put in bad tier. Milton. I will go neutral on Milton. Nilfgaard got several other changes, and Milton just combos so well with False Siri and Sangreal that you see those 3 cards in pretty much every Nilfgaard deck that's not Renfree, or playing exactly 12 tactics for Enslave. So it's a bit strong. You can see him in those decks sometimes because you can use Booher on him, and he's still fine, but you don't really see him otherwise. That deck has the no Sangreal, so you don't see him very commonly there, but I have seen him. So, I don't know. I'm kind of neutral on this one, which is why it's in the neutral tier. I know it's really self-explanatory. Again, he lost the power like all these other cards so far. Nazca Sergeant, not even talk about it. Knight Errant, I think this one's good. I did vote for this one as well. If the fact that it comes down at 6 out of bronze removal range, it's kind of a problem for me. It's not like a 6 provision engine like Flutter or something. It's a 5 provision engine. So it comes down at 6, which is really hard to get rid of. It lost the power, so it did come down to 6. Now it comes down to 5. I like better. And the other problem with this one is that if you played it with Amphibious Assault, it just triggered the shield infects that same turn. So I like this one, but I'd like to give... and Knights was a solid deck. So I don't hate Knights. I think we should give some other Northern Realm decks some attention. But I don't really want to nerf Knights any more than this. There's just this engine is kind of problematic, in my opinion. Dryad Fledgling. As much as I hate reversions, this is a good change. Go to top. I would put this in top tier because of how meta-defining Harmony was last patch. I said this on the last patch council. This was a bad idea to buff all these Harmony cards at once, and Fledgling in particular. So we had to revert it. It's a top tier change if I don't like reversions. It kind of had to be done. It was wild that we had so many buffs to that deck. Von Hurst, though, this is a good change. Congregation is not very good, and this card never made it to Congregation because at 5 for an 8 provision engine, he just died too easily. So I like this. So these cards are all... Oh, I should say, this is the first buff. We're now in the power buffs. So these 10 cards got their powers reduced. The next 10 got their power ink. Rience is also good. He's kind of a payoff card for things like Hyperthin, and Hyperthin's not very good. And he's not even worth as a payoff card all the time, because you usually want to play Doo-Doo and stuff. And it makes it hard to kind of fit that engine. It's pretty expensive. And he's just a really neat card. Maybe we'll see some more Quacks Rience coming back. No promises, though. That deck's that's special. So Rience gained 1. On Create Marauder, this guy does 3 random damage. I'm neutral on this one. Leaning to questionable. It's a 7 for 4 with... It's an unconditional 7 for 4 that does 3 damage. The damage is random, so it's not the worst thing, but I don't know how I feel about that. Brawler. Alright, Brawler gained a power. It's now 5 for 5, which is where I think it should have been all along, instead of reverting it from 4 and 5 over and over. So, I would say it's a top tier change. I like this card at this spot. You can't make it off of the Eventides anymore, but it's also not a 4 for 4 like where it's really weak, or 4 for 5 where it's really weak as an engine, because it doesn't actually get that much value as an engine. It's just a spender. So it only really gets engine value if you're putting out bounties and stuff, but it does give you good control. And it does kind of have an engine with the Intimidate, so yeah. But I think 5 for 5 is where it should be. Hopefully it stays there. Griffin Mature Def, we tried this before, and I thought it was fine. It got reverted, though. But the decks with it all seemed okay to me. Like, they didn't seem overpowered, so I'm glad we're having this back. Blue Stripes Commando. Going to top tier. Hopefully this brings back the Blue Stripes deck as an option without it being too strong. I don't think it'll be too strong. I played quite a bit of Blue Stripes last patch, and it was really bad. So even though this gives 1 power to all the cards, it should be fine. Like, it should... I don't think it'll be too oppressive. But I could be wrong about that. If I'm wrong about that, whatever. We're wrong. But I think it's good to bring back that deck. Give Northern Realms some options at the moment. They're pretty limited in their deck choices. Same thing for Ana. We're just going to put her in good because I don't think she makes a deck on her own. Whereas, like, this is completely fixes a deck in the meta. This hopefully makes a new deck. This helps a whole bunch of Syndicate decks because Syndicate really needs this. And several other decks. Ana, I'm not sure what we'll use her, but the fact that she's a 5 now, it means if you boost her by 1, she's at 6, which is harder to remove. So that's nice. I think this is just fine. Duan Canal Guardian, which I probably pronounced wrong, is also a good change in my opinion. I like the idea of Devotion Symbiosis being a thing, but I didn't see a single Symbiosis player the entire last patch because of the nerf to Equinox. So I think this is good. It's a 7 for 5 with Symbiosis. It just does 2 damage. It's more of like a mid-rangey card. You can set up something like the 3 damage one that buffs your hand or stuff like that. I think it'll only be played in Devotion, maybe, but it's an interesting one. I like this change. This card like never saw any play except like 2 years ago when it first came out. I put every Symbiosis card in the deck. That's the only time I've ever played this. Vendor. I don't think Vendor deserved a nerf, so we'll put it in good. Like, it gained a power back that it just lost, which I think was warranted, and I don't really have any other opinions on it than that. Crown Splitter is good. I used to play this card as a 1-up in Collusion, which we'll probably be revisiting soon. And I used to play as a 1-up in Collusion because there's the 2 gang tags and it's a spender, and you were kind of limited on the spenders in that deck. You wanted them to have gang tags. This had 2, which was nice, if I recall correctly. I don't know why I remember that wrong, but I like this change. I don't think it makes a huge difference. It's 5 that gives you 2 coins and a suspender. That's reasonable value. It is only a 1-for-1 spender, so it's not as good as something like a Sea Jackal, but the fact that it gives you a couple coins is a 5-point body. It's pretty nice. Alright, that is the end of the power increases. We're now on to the provision increases, aka the provision nerfs. Let's go. We have War Council. I don't know about War Council. Like, I kind of liked it as an alternative to Jan for consistency in Nilfgaard. Same way I kind of like, or I definitely liked the change to Roderick. But I don't know one way or the other in this one. It's just like, I didn't see too much of an impact of it because the meta was so dominated by Harmony and Raid Warriors, which is why we didn't even play that much last patch. I was tired of that. But yeah, I don't know about this one. I felt it wasn't a great idea to buff it, but I couldn't really tell if it did anything because the meta last season really, so let's put that there. Lara gaining a provision increase. I don't know about this one. I'm going to put this one questionable. Lara is extremely good in Tatterwing, but I'd rather just have Tatterwing, which we'll get to right in a minute, get the provision nerf. I don't think they both needed it, but she's really strong. Honestly, I kind of wish she was a little bit cheaper or something so that you can actually use her in Wild Hunt without being a huge commitment, but you can't really do that without like buffing Tatterwing, so I don't know about this one. It's not my favorite. Tatterwing, though, is a good change in my opinion. I think he should be 12 provisions. Again, this gained a provision, it's gained a provision, so this. And I think it's just such a deck-defining card that gain provision is good. I want Arrakis Swarm to be non-Tattering Arrakis Swarm. I think should be viable as an alternative to Tatterwing. And if Tatterwing gets a nerf here, people say, yeah, it hurts the Tatterwing deck. I'd rather just buff the other cards in the Arrakis Swarm so that both the decks get better, whereas the Tatterwing version, like, it lost the version here. I would rather just have some of the other cards in the deck get buffed so that non-Tatterwing and Tatterwing are more on an even footing, and also both like competitive and viable. So that's just my thoughts on that. Water of Brokilon, I don't like this. I think it's a bad change. I think the Dryad Fledgling was the problem, and once Fledgling and even like Saskia were fixed, like Water is fine, but it was also really interesting. This gave you options for deck building. It's 9, and it plays for 10 with 2 engines, sure, but, like, it's not like they're the best engines. I don't know. I liked it at 9. I thought that was fine. Harmony wasn't good until it got all these buffs. I think this was the one buff they should have done, just this buff, but I liked the 9. What are we going to say? Azar, I mean, we'll put in questionable. I don't like all the changes to defenders at 10, but they're all going to 10, and there's no reason arguing with it because it's just going to happen at this point, like all the tutors. So I'm just putting questionable because he's not that great. He's good with Candle, but this is like, we'll get to Candle later. It's going to balance out and it's be the same. Next, we have Tome. I voted for this one. I think it's a good change. It's an extremely strong card. Like, when this card first came out, also, we don't mention the fact that this has an order to like trigger a death rattle is hilarious to me because I've never seen that used. But anyway, as this card has gotten played more over time, there's a lot of stuff that plays it now. Vampires like it in Golden Necker Vampires, Relics play it in Golden Necker Relics. It's really strong as a card. I think it warrants being 9 provisions. That's just kind of my opinion. I think it warrants being 9. But I can see this people arguing about this one for sure. False Siri, top tier. I think this is a really great change. This card just is in like everything in Nilfgaard except for Renfri. And at 6, it just played for too much. Like, you play this for 6 provisions, you get to replay a tactic, and then it comes back to your side. Because the opponent's either going to play Sangreal or Buhurt on it, and it's going to come back to them. And then it plays for like 16 plus a tactic from your graveyard, or they play Sangreal on it. It plays for like 24 plus a thing from your graveyard. So it's going to come back to you. And if that doesn't happen, they're just going to play it in a long round, which will come back anyway. And the value in this is kind of insane. It's just too much value for 6 version card, in my opinion. And it also gives you a ton of flexibility in what tactics you play. So this was way too good. And then we have Highland Warlord. Alright, Highland Warlord and War of Clans will do together. The Raid Warrior deck got a bunch of provision buffs last patch after being the best deck 2 patches before that and becoming bad from nerfs. So it was one of the best decks, got over nerfed, got all the nerfs reverted, and got buffed, became the best deck again to counter Harmony. and now it just got nerfed again. So let's talk about these in sequence. War of Clans, I don't like it going back to 5, especially because we also did this at the same time and Skjordal. Or going back to 6, I mean. At 5, it was a strong card, but particularly just abused by Highland Warlord raids, where the 2 damage actually means something. Most of the time, the 2 damage doesn't really do anything. You're just playing a 4 vision card for an extra provision, which I think's fine. It was good, though. And then we have Highland Warlord, which is a good change. This should be a 6 provision card. We're going to put it in neutral. No, it goes here. If it goes any more flip-floppy between 5 and 6, it's getting thrown down here in the trash tier like everything else that keeps staying swapped, though. So I think this is a 6 provision card. You play this, and it gives you, like, you play, like, 7 raids after this, 5 or 6, 7 raids, 8 after this. So it gives you, like, 8 extra damage throughout the game. That's definitely warranted being a 6 provision card. So I think this should be 6. I think we should have left this at 5, and I would have left this too, but whatever. And the last of the provision increases is going to be Onslaught. This is just a reversion to a provision decrease before, so we're putting in questionable. So, whatever. On to the provision increases. Let's give this deck one more. And now we are on to the provision decreases. All these cards lost a provision, so they got buffed. Provision buff time. Axii. I like this change. Axii, even in like Skellige, where you can get the Witchers out pretty quick, it's not the best card. And it's a fun one to use. I really like trying to set this thing up and using it, but it's just too awkward, and it's also expensive. At like 11, would you really want to try and seize an opponent's card? You maybe like fit in a Geralt Professional or something? I don't really think so. So I like this being buffed a little bit. I'll be honest, I actually used to run the original Axii, and I kind of just like miss playing it. I think it's warranting the nerf, though. Yennefer, I think this is a good one. Does this go? I'll put this in top tier, actually. So this one makes a whole bunch of decks possible that weren't before, and I really like that. It gives you a huge payoff to something like Golden Nekker Arrakis Swarm, which could be something you want to do now, because it's a big payoff at 9. And also like how it fixes a bunch of other decks. I think, yeah, we voted for this one and also this False Ciri one, by the way. Tome. So I really like the Yennefer change. There are not just Arrakis Swarm that can use this too. There's other Swarm decks like in Non-Devotion Congregation, which I've played a decent amount. Having this at 9 might actually make it a contender for a spot in the deck over something like Sayer Khan possibly. So that's interesting. I like this. And you can also maybe, it also synergizes with stuff like the buffed here. Because if you can swarm in Northern Realms, usually you just play Voimir, but maybe if this is 9, you can play her and buff all the blue stripes instead. Maybe you also want to play it with something like Germain. Melitaly's pretty meme now. It's not very good. This will help that out if you want to play that, like a Swarm Melitaly deck. Nilfgaard soldiers can swarm pretty effectively if they want to. And honestly, I've been trying to make a soldier swarm deck with, what's the transform guy? Slave infantry work. And I think this is just gives a lot of options for a lot of decks that maybe could be made with it, and I like that. Bank to 9. I'm gonna go with good here. Bank's not like, I'll be honest here. Bank's like one of my least favorite tutors in the whole game. It gives you 4 coins, and you see the top 10 of your deck. If you're like round 2 or 3, you see most of your deck, but it costs you coins for the RNG past what's the deck order, right? So I don't like it for that effect. And I think this only went to 10 because of some Golden Nekker or Poison deck, like in months ago, that was really good. And Syndicate got a whole bunch of nerfs since then, so I kind of like this here at 9. Kind of like it at 9. Syndicate really hasn't been doing super well when I play, but it's one of those factions that's a super high ceiling. So maybe this is too good for the top players, but I like giving the options here to make some other decks in Syndicate. And it's like a buff. The deck, like, this can help compensate for the other nerfs they received. Because Syndicate really didn't have too many options, right? A lot of stuff got nerfed. Even though I tried to make a deck last patch, we just ended with Bounty because it's the least nerfed deck. So I think I like this getting a buff, but I can see arguments for it. Moriels, I'm kind of neutral on. I played Moriels a fair bit. Moriels is a kind of a hard one. If you look at its value, it's a 4. There's 4, whatever. I kind of want all those to be in this 4 for 8 range. Malena, we'll get to her eventually. But like all these 4 damage, the 4 damage isn't as meaningful as it used to be, so all these cards are in trouble. unless they have some other effect, right? Like you don't see Mullane, you don't see the Skellige one where if there's Bloodthirst 2, do 4. You don't see Ada Striga because it got reworked because that wasn't very good in Monsters. You don't see stuff like that. So I like this. And then he's got, the only ones you see play are the ones with extra effects, right? So the ones you do see are Ivar, because you can do the swap effect. And sometimes you see this guy because he's got Tribute Destroy instead. Now, he's 4 for 4. You can spend 6 to destroy a unit. Or he's 8 for 8 now. And then you can spend 6 to destroy a unit. I think this is a fine buff. I'll put it in neutral. Because I've played this card before and it seemed fine. I'm not sure it needs the help, but I'll also be honest, I didn't see anyone play Syndicate, so I don't know. Well, this one neutral. I'm between neutral and good in this one. Next up, we have Candle. Candle's one of the hardest ones for me. Yeah. No one ever watched my review of when this card came out, please. Yeah, I thought maybe I'll make a short on that sometime when I actually make shorts. That'd be funny, bringing that back up. But anyway, this got a provision buff to 7. It plays for, it's 4 coins for 7 provisions, and all it does is it's a resilience spender. It's not a very good spender, because after the first 2 uses, it's not efficient compared to the other spenders you want to be using, but is a spender and it can protect stuff. So as a spender, it's not great. As a protection card, it is. So the question is, how's this compared to like other protection cards? I think the best one I can think of at the moment is Ale the Ancestors, because it also has resilience, and it also buffs your cards to protect it, and it has good value. So I think this at 7 is fine. I like Syndicate having potentially some more options, seeing as how heavily nerfed it got, but there's a lot of changes here. Like this is a key card for Syndicate. This is a key card for Syndicate. I got 2 provision buffs there. So see how that works out. We'll be playing some of it. I can see this anywhere from like here because Syndicate needs it to like here because people don't want to see engines getting buffed. I'll put another good one here. We like this one, Bride of the Sea. I like it. I've been playing some alchemies. Bride of the Sea just didn't really see things as an option. At 7, at 7, maybe you can make an argument for it over something like Axe of Three Eyes, because now they play for similar amounts, but she has flexibility. He has less setup. Maybe you play them both. Maybe you can make something with a deck based on like Rain, bringing back with another Sin vs. Right or something. Could be interesting. I like the idea of this. Mercenary Contract. I would put this in top tier if I had thought it would have any more effect than it's going to. Let's be honest. I like this card as a tutor. I think this card is extremely interesting. I'd love to see it get played. The fact is, it only gives you like 5 coins. I think it's 5. And then you search and you pay all the coins, and then you search for something less than or equal to it. Now, it's not like Amphibious Assault, where if you search for a 4 provision, you're made up for the difference, get 5 points. You just spend all the coins, you lose all the coins. So, you really don't have like some kind of fee card out to spend those early, so you don't overspend coins. But I really like this card as an option, at 6 provisions, as an option to play like cheap bronzes that are key to your deck. Like Witch Hunter Executioner, for example. Like, maybe you just want a tutor to find Witch Hunter Executioner. Or you want a tutor to find something to put out bounty for your Witch Hunter Executioner. I like this as an option there. We're going to try this one out. And I really wish this card's played. It's very interesting to me. So I think it's good it's getting changed. You're going in this tier. Then we have Teleportation. So that's good. Teleportation only got nerfed because of the one Rot Tosser deck. And that deck got like 7 provisions nerfed or something ridiculous. Whereas I think this was one I didn't like the deck getting changed because it has other uses. And as much as I hate Mill's bad, so I don't care that much. But yeah, I think this card has some interesting uses in more fringe decks. Not necessarily Mill, but like fringe decks that want deploys. So I think it's good to have this at 4. Like, no one's going to play it at 5. People hardly play it at 4. So I think that's good here. And the last of the provision decreases is going to be Mage Assassin. I don't like this. Yeah, I just don't like this. There is an argument to be made that this is a good buff to help as an alternative to Jan for thinning and consistency. However, Blightmaker and Mage Assassin were already good. So I don't like this as a way to do that. Now it only costs you 10 provisions for the Blightmaker plus Mage Assassin. 11 value with 9 value with 2 damage. And a thinning. I'm not sure about that one. That seems a bit excessive, but I can see the arguments here because as an alternative to Yan as a way to thin or get consistency, that's a good thing. There should be alternatives to Yan and Nilfgaard, and also it specifically helps the tactical decision leader, which doesn't really see any play at the moment. Just because of that, as much as I dislike this change, because of those two arguments, we'll move it up to questionable. Although I'm really kind of here with it. But we'll be honest about that. Anyway, guys, that is all of the changes. We'll hopefully put them in nice little chapters, and this time it'll be clearer which ones got changed how. And overall, this is a pretty, I'll say, I think it's a fairly, I'll say boring. It's kind of a boring balance column. So there's what, like 12 reversions? What, one, this one is not a reversion, it's like a buff. Like 1, 2, 3, kind of, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, like 13-ish, 14. Like 14 of these are reversions, which is kind of boring. But there's some actual interesting stuff in here. Like Blue Stripes will try out. Syndicate got some love here with these two. Like this helps a lot of Syndicate decks, especially Devotion decks, which aren't my favorite. And Mercenary Contract's interesting. So overall, the two best decks from the last patch, and two of the best decks. The Harmony deck got completely destroyed. It's back to where it was before, with no changes at all. So that deck's no longer good. And then we have Highland Warlord Raids, which got also all of its stuff nerfed again. But that deck should be about where it was the first time it got nerfed. Right? Because it gained stuff, and it got a Vabuorn Provision. Actually, that deck might be pretty similar where it was then. So we'll see if that deck's still good. That deck still could be good. I think it's one version shorter than it was like 3 patches ago when it was meta. So the biggest decks got hit, some options here, and we'll see how this works out. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Again, this is just my first opinions. Obviously we can be wrong, and we'll see how it goes. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. We'll see you next time. That'll be it for this one, guys. Hope you enjoyed. We'll see you next time. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more. And you can check out some more videos over here. And thanks for watching.